So something a lot of people on this channel might not know is that I'm a big fan of Blizzard Entertainment. I've been playing their games since I was, God, 10 years old, maybe younger. My mom bought the original Warcraft back in the day, and we played it to death. Warcraft 2 came out. We bought that. We moved at the time right before StarCraft came out, and we didn't have a home computer anymore at that point because I think our old one died. But the military base that we were on had a library that had computers, and we were able to install them there, and we played StarCraft to death. Fast forward to just at the beginning of my college career, and one of the things I would cite as the biggest detriment to my college career was World of Warcraft coming out. I spent countless hours playing that game that year, and since it's come out, I've played it continuously. But of course, you're here because of the topic of the video, because this is what everyone's talking about, and since I have been a player of their video games for a very long time, I wanted to chime in with maybe a take that you're not hearing everywhere. I think it's a more reasonable take than the, I guess, listen and believe take that everyone seems to have. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. So I'm not going to defend Activision Blizzard here. They spent years virtue signaling about an overt progressive agenda that they took every single opportunity to shove down our throats. I mean, if you've played any of their games recently, female characters gain indestructible plot armor. Any male characters, specifically white male characters, are either made evil or betrayed, or they're made subservient to other female characters. There's rampant tokenism, and now we know that most of this was because of a guilty conscience. There's so much to be said of the quality of Blizzard's games in the past 8 years or so. They've had more lows than highs, to be sure, but let's not conflate the product with this headline, with this topic. I'm sure there's been some trickle-down effect, as other YouTubers and, Twitch streamers have said, because of course there would be in some ways, but I think the problems at Blizzard are far more directly related to their talent than they are to a few supervisors' pernicious influence. Now, I just want to say I'm not a lawyer, nor do I pretend to be one or have any sort of education in law, but I am a person with an opinion. I know, burn me at the stake. And here's my take. If you're new to my channel, I don't filter myself. I tend to give a raw perspective, something that I feel strongly about, and I welcome discussion, but just as a warning, if you're just here to smash a dislike button or talk shit, I don't care. I don't have patience for that. I'm not going to engage with you. But if you're here to have a mature discussion about this and offer your take in the comments, hey, I welcome that. That's great. So I think Blizzard and its employees are a textbook example of why I find progressivism to be little more than performative lip service, right? It's often touted by the most hypocritical, manipulative, and sinister people that you'll ever meet. They love to cast conservatives as backwards and lacking in empathy, when in reality, these labels are only used to deflect from their own hypocrisy. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Do as I say and not as I do. We've seen countless cases of this play out in recent years, from YouTubers like ProJared to big gaming companies like Ubisoft. These people love to say one thing and do another behind the scenes, because of course they do. And that brings me to my next point. I guess I could kind of segues a little bit into what I want to say next. Humans are multifaceted, complex creatures. Nothing is black and white, and I think what's getting lost in all of the dire, musicless intros, these dramatic videos being made about this topic, is that there are a lot of genuinely awesome, genuinely good people that work at Activision Blizzard. Yes, even some of the progressive shills and the ones in power, quote unquote, I think most of the conversation being made here comes from a mostly inexperienced crowd of Twitch viewers who only want to complain about the product that they're being given, which then colors their ire towards the company as a whole. But again, expecting nuance from the internet is like taking blood from a stone. That's just not going to happen. So I guess right now I'm speaking to my age group, those in their 30s and 40s. If you've ever worked for a big corporation, there are certain things that are 100% factual and real that we've all witnessed at some point or another. One, nepotism is rampant. There's always someone in a position of power that is only there because of who they're sleeping with or who they're related to. Fact. Number two, the nail that sticks out most gets hammered down first. I guarantee that there are people in positions of power that saw these alleged actions going on and did nothing about it simply because they knew that to do so would be to put their own careers at risk or would outright ruin them. And number three, people cannot be taken at their word. And this is what I'm going to say that's going to be a bit controversial, I suppose. But I don't believe everything that was said about Blizzard in this lawsuit. I'm sorry, I just don't. I've been around far too many people in a corporate setting to know that people lie all the time. And now I'm not saying everything here is a lie. I'm not saying that. But I am absolutely saying that some of it is. Or at the very least, highly embellished to establish a narrative that suits both the state of California and women in particular. Because that, let's be honest, has been the narrative for the last 7 or 8 years. And to piggyback off of that to my next point, I'm not someone who listens and believes. I'm sorry, but I'm far too skeptical of a person to just take everyone at their word and to have some of this stance from the outset, or to have that stance from the outset is to have incredible arrogance to me. I know for a fact that there are women out there who take advantage of men to better suit their stations and careers because I've personally seen it happen. To deny that this occurs is to deny reality. Now, again, I'm not placing blame on anyone or saying individual circumstances aren't exactly that, but I am saying let's not get carried away with judgment before the facts come out. Now, people like to point out that the state of California conducted a 2-year investigation into this, so how could anyone argue that what was stated isn't completely true? And to that, I would say, do you honestly believe government entities do anything with honesty and efficiency? Someone very famous once said the most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." I'm sorry, but if you're looking for someone who takes any government agency at their word, especially one from the state of California, you're listening to the wrong guy. These forces are used as cudgels against corporations, not the scalpels that I'd like to think that they're drawn up as. And so when Blizzard's PR response came out and blasted the DIFA, or however you want to say it, for their behavior during those investigations, I have no doubt in my mind that the DIFA weren't cooperative, because government accountability is just as laughable to me as corporate accountability. Those both things can be true. I can see the benefit of this agency in theory as a check on businesses on paper, and I don't hate the idea altogether, but the wisdom I've gained during my experiences and observations of government do not lend me to agree with their findings from the outset. So I would say the onus is entirely on them to change my mind and indeed prove their comments in a court of law in all regards. Now, obviously some people hearing this will balk at the idea that I don't immediately assume that these women are being 100% honest, and you're well within your right to hold that opinion too. But there's a lot in this lawsuit that makes me believe that this is about more than just true justice. And so here's a hint. Whenever you hear claims of unfair pay and the men played video games all day while we worked, feminism is afoot, dear Watson. First of all, it's a video game developer, so the idea that people are playing video games there tracks. That hordes of men are delegating tasks to the women so that they could play video games all day, I find laughable. I could get on board with this immediately from the outset if this were just about harassment and behavioral accusations, because that's far more realistic in the workplace. And just some Heathen James trivia for you. I went to school for game design at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and let me tell you, there are levels of social inadequacy that you are not prepared for when you're in that field. To say that most of these brilliant artists and mathematicians lack social grace would be the understatement of the century. So I can totally see these people who have never had real exposure to the real world or how people really interact, behave in an awkward way around the opposite sex. I can totally see that. But when I hear claims of a woman saying they were passed up for promotion because they quote unquote might get pregnant, my bullshit alarm goes off. This is the kind of stuff people say because they hear feminist talking points on Twitter and MSNBC. No one in a position of power at one of these companies would utter these words, especially not from one based in Southern California, and especially not in current year. I mean, everyone's got a spotlight on them. So this tells me that there's more than a few personal vendettas at play here, and of course there are, because people are people, and if they feel bolstered enough, they'll take what they can get away with. And since California and the mainstream in general tends to listen and believe all women, quote unquote, this muddies the water between fact and fiction. So yeah, I think there's a bit of pearl clutching going on here, because it's funny to me how the media reacts when it's women who make these claims, but when men do, they're completely dismissed, as was the case with Alec Holoka a couple years ago when he committed suicide at the mere accusation of impropriety. And that furthers my argument about people in this industry simply not knowing how to cope with adversity, in his case, but also that it's incredibly biased in favor of women. So where's the justice in that? Now, let's talk about gaming culture in general. And I don't mean you and I mean in a corporate way. The chief reason I got out of the gaming industry before I even really got into it was because I saw how the sausage was made. People cite how long the work weeks are, the low pay, the lack of benefits, crunch, all of these things. It's very true. It's a burn and churn industry. You're treated like cattle from the outset. And obviously this isn't as much the case in smaller indie studios or startups because there isn't as much red tape or expectation for that kind of workflow, but it's certainly the case in the big studios. So I was an animator, so I can handle tedious, repetitive task work fairly well, but when you combine that with all of the other pressures of a deadline-driven industry, you have a recipe for burnout or worse. Only the very lucky or very talented make it into positions of relative comfort at these studios. In Blizzard's case, we know it only got worse as the years went on. I mean, they would reward good work in the company with company currency? I mean, what? I would laugh right in the face of whoever was telling me that was my reward for my hard work, and I would quit on the spot. We've heard that pay there was lower than the industry average in some cases, but, with that, again, we have to be careful in how we analyze that data because it all depends on what you do, how long you've been doing it, etc. This is just kind of a problem with the way the media analyzes data in general. It sort of dovetails into my commentary earlier about the complaint that some of these women made about unfair pay and this idea that women are paid less than men, which is just false nonsense. If two people of opposite genders in equal positions with equal training and experience are doing the exact same tasks with the exact same output, there is no discrepancy. But men tend to work more hours on average than women. Men don't usually put family before their careers. Men don't have paternity leave in some cases, certain companies, and have totally different desires on average than women do. Hence, we see an earnings gap, which is, as I've pointed out just now, totally explainable. Again, to reiterate what I said earlier, I don't think these claims are entirely unfounded, because as I said, in my personal experience in the workforce, I know some of them to be absolutely true. I've seen it happen. But the point I'm making is that we shouldn't let our social impulse to side with women at all times override our objective reasoning, nor should we use the decline in quality from Blizzard video games as an indictment of their guilt. Half the reason we're inundated with as much progressive nonsense as we are today is precisely because we've lost our objectivity in order to be viewed as quote-unquote allies or good people. You know, I'd rather have my principles and look at something objectively and honestly than be some phony ally on Twitter or to put some stupid thing in my bio. I don't think all of it is entirely untrue, but I don't think all of it is entirely true either. I think the truth lies somewhere in between. You know, do I think people in power at the company saw some of this stuff happen and looked the other way? Absolutely. As I said earlier, of course they did. Because they didn't want to put their career at risk. They, you know, a lot of people, they don't feel like that you're rewarded for calling out that kind of behavior. And you're right. If you're saying that needs to change and, you know, we can't allow that to be the norm. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. In fact, in most ways, progressivism on paper, at least a lot of the things that it touts, sounds good. It's just in practice, what it ends up being is rules for thee and not for me. And that's what I have a problem with. So I guess we're going to see what happens when everything comes out in court. I stopped playing World of Warcraft earlier in the year because Shadowlands has just been awful. You know, Blizzard games in general have lately been pretty bad. I am very much looking forward to Diablo 4. I'm hoping a lot of this gets resolved before that point because that game's looking pretty good. But, you know, if we're to stay on topic here, to put a nice capstone on all of this, a TLDR, if you will, Blizzard deserves what's coming. If for no other reason than their hypocritical progressive views and their actions. Not all women are liars, but not all women are truthful either, and the government of the state of California does not deserve your trust, nor should you willingly give it to them. And also, I think most importantly, what's coloring a lot of this, that people need to realize, the media loves a juicy story, but especially one that involves accusations of harassment and unfair treatment towards women. This is a gold mine, especially in the progressive media, the leftist media. I mean, that's why we're seeing all of these places, you know, it being an industry-wide story is why you're seeing it everywhere. But of course, this is the kind of thing that Kotaku and Polygon and Jason Schreier are eating up. They love this stuff because it gives them the largest progressive hard-on that you can possibly imagine. So don't feed into that. Don't feed into the haze and rush to judgment. You know, don't just take what people are saying at face value. You know, don't take some YouTuber or some Twitch streamer's word at what's happening and think that that's, you know, the gospel. Try to form your own opinion. You know, I see a lot of people, and this is just the internet 101, especially when it comes to Twitch streamers or YouTubes or anyone who has a personality presence online. People tend to get in queue behind them and say, this is where I stand. I really wish more people practiced critical thinking a little bit more on their own and didn't just take these things at face value. So I'm kind of reiterating what I'm saying there. But anyways, quick video. I just wanted to give my piece about this. If you think I'm completely wrong, you know, you feel free to say so in the comments. Just, you know, don't be a dickhead, and we'll get along swimmingly. All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. See you.